At my brother's 30th birthday party, he opened the gift I'd spent 3 weeks finding. A vintage watch that matched one our grandfather used to wear. The kind you can't buy in stores anymore. The kind you have to hunt for in estate sales and antique shops. Kyle held it up to the light, squinted at it like he was examining something he'd found on the bottom of his shoe, and said loud enough for all 50 guests to hear, "What the hell is this? Did you pull this out of a dumpster? This is cheap, worthless trash, man." Then he threw it, not set it down, threw it, back at me. The watch hit my chest and fell to the floor. The crystal cracked. People gasped. Some laughed nervously. My parents, standing right next to Kyle with their arms around his shoulders, didn't gasp, didn't defend me. My mother actually smiled. My father shrugged like Kyle had just made a reasonable observation. I didn't pick up the watch, didn't yell, didn't make a scene. I pulled out my phone, opened my banking app, and canceled every automatic transfer to Kyle Morrison. Then I looked at my brother, at his smug face, at his designer clothes I'd paid for, at his Rolex I'd bought him last Christmas, and I said, "Enjoy the house while you can. You've got about 30 days. He laughed, thought I was joking. Everyone did. Until the bank called 3 days later asking why the mortgage payment had bounced. Until the BMW dealer sent the repossession notice. Until everything I'd been funding for 8 years disappeared in 30 days. That's when my grandfather showed up with documents that explained why my parents had let Kyle treat me like garbage my entire life. Why they'd smiled when he threw my gift in my face. Why I'd never been the son they wanted. Because I wasn't their son at all. I should have seen it coming. The insult, Kyle had been working up to it for years. Every gift, every gesture, every attempt I made to be a good brother was met with dismissal or mockery. But let me back up. Because understanding what happened at that birthday party requires understanding 38 years of being second place in my own family. Of funding a life for a brother who despised me. Of parents who watched it happen and did nothing. I'm Nathan Morrison, and at 38 years old, I'd spent 8 years paying for my younger brother's entire existence, while he treated me like I was the help, and I'd finally had enough. The morning of Kyle's party started like any other Saturday. I woke up in my apartment in Denver, made coffee, checked my phone for the usual text from Kyle asking when I'd be arriving. Not because he wanted to see me, because he wanted to make sure I was bringing a gift. Something expensive. Something he could show off to his friends. Something that proved his older brother had money. I'd found the watch 3 weeks earlier. Been searching for months. Our grandfather had worn one just like it. A 1960s Omega Seamaster. Nothing flashy. Nothing ostentatious. Just a beautiful piece of craftsmanship that meant something. That connected us to family history. That said, I remembered our grandfather and I wanted Kyle to have something that honored that memory. I had it restored. New band. Cleaned movement. Polished case. It cost me $3,000 by the time I was done. Not because the watch was worth that much, but because I wanted it perfect. Wanted Kyle to understand that I'd put thought into this. That it wasn't just another expensive thing I'd bought him. That it meant something. I drove to Kyle's house around 2. The house in Cherry Creek. The nice neighborhood. The house with the mortgage I'd been paying for 3 years. Kyle had bought it when he was 27, fresh out of his latest failed business venture. No job, no income, but absolutely convinced he needed to live somewhere impressive. The bank had laughed at his loan application. No way was anyone giving him a mortgage. So I'd co-signed, put down the 20%, paid the first year of payments until Kyle got on his feet. That was 3 years ago. He still wasn't on his feet, but I was still paying $3,200 a month. 36 months. $115,200 so far. But who was counting? I counted everything. Not because I wanted repayment, but because I'm in finance. I'm a portfolio manager. Tracking numbers is what I do. And the numbers on my brother were staggering. The party was already in full swing when I arrived. 50 people in Kyle's backyard. Catered food. Open bar. Live band. The kind of 30th birthday party that costs $15,000. The kind Kyle couldn't afford. The kind I'd paid for because my mother had called crying. It's his 30th, Nathan. It needs to be special. You know Kyle's having a hard time right now with the business and everything. Could you help? Could I help? That was the question I'd been hearing my entire adult life. Could I help with Kyle's rent? Could I help with Kyle's car payment? Could I help with Kyle's business idea? Could I help with Kyle's credit card debt? Could I help? Always could I help. Never would I help, which implied a choice. Just could I, which implied ability and therefore obligation. I had the ability. Therefore, I had the obligation. That was the family math. I walked through Kyle's house, the house I was paying for, and out to the backyard where everyone was celebrating. My mother saw me first. Nathan, you made it. She hugged me the way you'd hug a distant cousin at a reunion. Brief, perfunctory. Then immediately, did you bring Kyle's gift? He's been asking about it. Not how are you? Not so good to see you. Just did you bring the gift? I held up the wrapped box. Elegant paper. Perfect bow. My mother smiled. Good. He's been excited. Excited. My brother had been excited to see what expensive thing I'd bought him this year. What item he could show off. What proof of my generosity or guilt or obligation I'd brought. My father appeared. Shook my hand. Asked about work. I told him about a recent deal I'd closed. A big one. The kind that came with a substantial bonus. His eyes lit up. That's great, son. Really great. Kyle mentioned he's looking at expanding his business. I'm sure he'd love to talk to you about investment opportunities. Of course, my success was only relevant in terms of what it could do for Kyle. How my bonus could fund his next failed venture. How my career wins could become his opportunities. That was always how it worked. Kyle was holding court in the center of the backyard, surrounded by friends, telling some story that had everyone laughing. He looked good, successful, the kind of 30-year-old who had it all figured out. Designer clothes, perfect hair, that confident smile. Everything about him screamed success. Everything except the reality, which was that he was broke. Had been broke for 5 years, since his last business failed. Since the business before that failed. Since every venture he'd tried had failed because Kyle was great at looking successful and terrible at actually being successful. But that didn't matter, because I was there to catch him every time he fell. To fund the lifestyle, to pay the bills, to make sure he could keep up appearances. And I'd been doing it so long I'd forgotten what it felt like to say no. People were eating when my mother announced it was time for gifts. Everyone gathered around Kyle. A pile of presents on the table. Expensive bottles of liquor. Electronics. Gift cards. The kind of presents you give someone turning 30 who seems to have everything. Kyle opened them one by one, making jokes, thanking people, playing the gracious host. Then he got to mine. The last one. The one with the elegant paper and perfect bow. He picked it up. Heavier than expected. He shook it slightly. What did Big Brother get me this year? He said, grinning. People laughed, like it was a running joke. What would rich Nathan give his brother? What expensive thing would prove Nathan cared? I should have known then, should have seen it in his tone, should have realized this wasn't going to go well. But I was hopeful, stupidly, desperately hopeful that this time would be different. That this time Kyle would see the thought I'd put in. That this time he'd appreciate something beyond the price tag. He tore off the paper, opened the box, pulled out the watch, the vintage Omega, the one I'd hunted for, had restored, had spent $3,000 and countless hours making perfect. He held it up to the light, squinted at it. The smile faded from his face. What the hell is this? He said. Not to me, to the crowd, like he was asking them to weigh in on what I'd done wrong. Is this some kind of joke? I stepped forward. It's a 1960s Omega Seamaster, like the one Grandpa used to wear. I had it restored. Thought you'd. He cut me off. You thought I'd want some old piece of junk? What am I supposed to do with this? I have a Rolex, Nathan. You bought it for me last year. Remember? Why would I want this cheap, worthless trash? The backyard went quiet. People staring. Some uncomfortable. Some curious to see where this was going. I kept my voice calm. It's not trash, Kyle. It's a vintage piece. It has history, meaning. I thought. He cut me off again. You thought wrong. Then he threw it at me. Underhanded toss like he was throwing away garbage. The watch hit my chest. I didn't catch it, just let it fall to the ground. The sound of crystal cracking against concrete was loud in the silence. I looked at my parents, waiting for them to say something, anything, to tell Kyle he was out of line, that you don't throw gifts, that you don't insult someone who's been supporting you for years. My mother was smiling, actually smiling, like Kyle had just done something amusing. My father shrugged, turned away, reached for his drink. Kyle's friends were laughing now. Nervous laughter, but laughter. And Kyle was basking in it. In the attention. In the moment where he'd embarrassed me in front of 50 people and nobody had stopped him. I bent down, picked up the watch. The crystal was cracked. The restoration ruined. $3,000 and 3 weeks of searching. Destroyed because my brother thought it was funny to throw it on the ground. I looked at Kyle. At his smug face. At the Rolex on his wrist that I'd paid for. At the designer shirt I'd bought him. At the house behind him that I owned more of than he did. And I felt something click. Not break. Click. Like a lock finally opening. Like I'd been trying to open a door for 38 years and finally found the right key. The key was acceptance. Accepting that this was never going to change. That Kyle was never going to appreciate me. That my parents were never going to defend me. That I'd been funding my own humiliation for 8 years and I was done. I pulled out my phone, opened my banking app. 38 years of being the good son, the reliable son, the one who paid for everything and asked for nothing. I was done. I found the automatic transfer to Kyle's mortgage. Canceled it. Found the car payment for his BMW. Canceled it. Found the business account I'd set up for his latest venture. Closed it. Found the credit card I'd given him for emergencies. Canceled it. Took me about 90 seconds to dismantle 8 years of support. Kyle was watching me, still smiling. Thought I was checking email or something. Didn't realize I'd just pulled every financial support system out from under him. I put my phone away, looked at him, at my younger brother who'd just thrown a $3,000 gift in my face and expected me to take it. Enjoy the house while you can, I said, my voice calm, steady. You've got about 30 days before the bank starts foreclosure proceedings. His smile faltered. What? I started walking toward the gate. The mortgage payment. I just canceled it. Along with your car payment, your business account, your credit card, everything I've been paying for. As of right now, you're on your own. I heard him laugh behind me, that confident laugh. The one that said he thought I was bluffing. Yeah, right. You're not serious. I turned back. I'm completely serious. You wanted to know what I got you for your 30th birthday? Independence. Congratulations. I left. Walked through his house. The house I'd paid $115,000 toward, and out to my car. Drove away while Kyle and my parents and 50 guests stood in the backyard trying to figure out if I was joking. I wasn't joking. The next morning, Sunday, my phone started ringing at 7. My mother. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail. Nathan, we need to talk about yesterday. Kyle is very upset. He says you canceled his mortgage payment? That can't be right. Call me back immediately. I deleted the voicemail without listening to the whole thing. My father called at 8. Left a message. Son, I don't know what happened yesterday, but we need to work this out. Kyle's mortgage is due in 3 days. You can't just leave him hanging like this. Call me. I deleted that one too. Kyle called at 9, then 10, then 11. Left 7 voicemails. I didn't listen to any of them. Around noon, my mother showed up at my apartment. I didn't let her in. Talked to her through the door. Nathan, open up. We need to discuss this. I kept the door closed. There's nothing to discuss. Kyle threw my gift in my face. You smiled. Dad shrugged. I'm done funding his life. That's the end of the discussion. She knocked harder. You're being ridiculous. He didn't mean anything by it. He was just joking around. You know how Kyle is. You can't punish him for having a sense of humor. a sense of humor. That's what she called throwing a $3,000 gift on the ground and calling it trash. I'm not punishing him, I said through the door. I'm just not paying for him anymore. There's a difference. She tried a different approach. Softer. Nathan, honey, please. He's your brother. Family helps family. You've always been so good about that. So generous. We're proud of you. But you can't just abandon Kyle like this. He needs you. I opened the door. Looked at my mother. At this woman who'd raised me to believe that being the older brother meant being the ATM. That generosity was measured in dollars spent. That love was transactional. He doesn't need me, I said. He needs money. There's a difference. And I'm not giving it anymore. She started crying. Real tears. The kind she'd always been good at. How can you be so cruel? He's your brother. Your baby brother. And you're going to let him lose his house? His car? His business? Over a watch? Over a joke? I stepped back. This isn't about the watch. This is about 38 years of being treated like my only value is my bank account. Of paying for everything and getting nothing. Not respect. Not appreciation. Not even basic courtesy. I'm done. Kyle is 30 years old. Time for him to figure out how to pay his own bills. She shifted tactics again. To anger. You're being selfish. You have money. More than you need. And you're going to hoard it while your family struggles? What kind of son does that? I started closing the door. The kind of son who just realized his family only calls when they need something. Tell Kyle the mortgage is due Thursday. He should probably figure out how to cover it. I closed the door. Locked it. Stood there listening to my mother bang on it for 5 more minutes before she finally gave up and left. Monday morning, I got an email from Kyle's bank. Mortgage payment past due. Did I want to make a payment? I deleted it. Got a call from the BMW dealership. Kyle's account was 30 days past due. Did I want to bring the account current? I didn't answer. Got a text from my father. Nathan, this has gone on long enough. Kyle's mortgage bounced. The bank is charging late fees. You need to fix this. This is family. I blocked his number. Tuesday, Kyle showed up at my office. Got past security somehow. Stormed into my office while I was in a meeting with a client. What the hell, Nathan? The bank is threatening foreclosure. The BMW place is talking about repossession. You're actually doing this? Over a watch. I excused myself from the meeting. Walked Kyle out to the lobby. I'm doing this because you threw my gift on the ground and called it trash. Because Mom smiled when you did it. Because Dad shrugged. Because none of you have ever treated me like anything other than a wallet with legs. And I'm done. Kyle's face was red. Angry. You're being a child. Grow up. So I didn't like your gift. Big deal. You don't ruin someone's life over that. I pressed the elevator button for him. I'm not ruining your life. I'm just not funding it anymore. You're 30 years old, Kyle. Get a job. Pay your own bills. Live within your means. Like normal adults do. He grabbed my arm. You can't do this. That's my house. My car. My business. I pulled my arm away. No. That's my money. My house I'm paying for. My car payment I'm covering. My business I'm funding. And I'm taking it all back. You're on your own now. Like you've been telling me you are for years. Wednesday, the bank called Kyle directly. Foreclosure proceedings initiated. 30 days to bring the account current or vacate the property. Kyle called me 17 times. Left voicemails ranging from angry to desperate to apologetic. I didn't respond. Thursday, the BMW was repossessed. Tow truck showed up at 6 in the morning. Took the car right out of Kyle's driveway. My mother called crying. Are you happy now? He has no way to get to work. How is he supposed to pay you back if he can't get to work? I almost laughed. Kyle didn't have a job. Hadn't had one in 2 years. The work he needed to get to was meeting friends for lunch and pretending he had a business. But I didn't say that. Just hung up. Friday, Kyle's business account bounced 3 checks. Suppliers calling asking what happened. Threatening legal action. Kyle's friends stopped returning his calls. The ones who'd laughed at his party. Who'd thought it was funny when he threw my gift. They weren't laughing now. weren't interested in being friends with someone who couldn't pay for dinner, who couldn't afford the lifestyle, who was, it turned out, completely broke. Week 2, Kyle tried showing up at my apartment every day, Monday through Friday, knocking on the door, begging me to answer, to talk, to work this out. I watched through the peephole, watched my brother spiral, losing weight, looking tired, desperate. Part of me felt bad. That part that had been programmed for 38 years to take care of him, to solve his problems, to be the good big brother who fixed everything. But another part of me, the part that had been ignored and used and dismissed for decades, that part felt nothing, or maybe it felt free, like I'd been carrying Kyle on my back and finally set him down. My mother sent emails, long ones, explaining how I was destroying the family, how Kyle was suffering, how I was being selfish and cruel, how disappointed my grandparents would be, how I needed to fix this before it was too late. I didn't respond. My father sent shorter emails, more direct. Nathan, you've made your point. Kyle understands now. He's sorry. He'll apologize. Just restore the payments and we can move forward. I deleted them all. Kyle sent texts, hundreds of them, apologizing, explaining, blaming the alcohol, blaming stress, blaming everyone except himself, promising he'd change, promising he'd appreciate me, promising anything if I just turned the money back on. I didn't respond. Week 3, Kyle had to list the house. Couldn't make the payment. Couldn't get a loan. Bank demanded he sell or face foreclosure. The house went up for sale. Market was good. Offers came in fast. But they were lower than what Kyle owed. He was underwater on the mortgage. Would have to come up with the difference at closing. Money he didn't have. Money he wanted me to provide. I didn't. My parents tried intervention round 2. Showed up at my office together. Made it past security by claiming it was an emergency. Sat in my office with serious faces and told me this had to stop. That I was tearing the family apart. That Kyle was a mess. Couldn't sleep. Couldn't eat. Was having panic attacks about losing everything. Good, I said. They stared at me. Good? My mother repeated. Your brother is having panic attacks and you think that's good? I leaned back in my chair. Kyle has never had consequences before. For anything. Every time he's failed, I've caught him. Every time he's made bad decisions, I've funded the recovery. He's 30 years old and has no idea how to take care of himself because I've been doing it for him since he was 22. These panic attacks? They're called reality. He's meeting it for the first time. Yeah, I think that's good. My father slammed his hand on my desk. You're being cruel. We raised you better than this. I stood up. No, you didn't. You raised me to believe my only value was what I could provide. That being a good son meant funding Kyle's life. That love was measured in dollars spent. Well, I'm done. Kyle treated me like trash. You both watched and did nothing. So now I'm doing nothing. Seems fair. Week 4, Kyle moved out of the house. Moved in with a friend. Then got kicked out when he couldn't contribute to rent. Moved in with my parents. Into his childhood bedroom. 30 years old. My mother called it temporary. Said he just needed time to get back on his feet. I called it inevitable. The natural consequence of never learning to stand on your own. My grandfather called me for the first time through all of this. My father's father. The one whose watch Kyle had thrown. Nathan, he said, I heard what happened. I want to talk to you. Not to convince you to change your mind. Just to talk. I trusted my grandfather. He'd always been different. Honest. Direct. Didn't play the manipulation games the rest of my family did. I agreed to meet him for breakfast Saturday morning. We met at a diner. He was already there when I arrived. Looking older than I remembered. Tired in a way that had nothing to do with age. He hugged me, long and tight. Then we sat down. I heard Kyle threw the watch, he said. The one like mine. I nodded. Threw it on the ground. Called it cheap trash. Mom smiled. Dad shrugged. So I pulled all his funding. My grandfather nodded slowly. About time, he said. I looked up. Surprised. What? He smiled sadly. Nathan. I've watched you fund Kyle's life for 8 years. Watched you pour hundreds of thousands of dollars into someone who gave you nothing in return. Watched your parents enable it, encourage it, make you feel obligated. I've been waiting for you to say enough. I'm glad you finally did. I felt something in my chest. Relief, maybe. Validation. Everyone else thinks I'm being cruel, I said. My grandfather shook his head. Everyone else has been using you. There's a difference between being cruel and setting boundaries. What you're doing is healthy. What they've been doing is exploitation. We ordered breakfast, ate in comfortable silence for a few minutes. Then he said, "There's something you should know about why your parents have always treated Kyle differently, why they've always expected you to take care of him, why they never defend you." I set down my fork. "I'm listening." He pulled out a manila folder, set it on the table. "Your grandmother made me promise not to tell you until you were ready, until you'd figured out you deserved better. That time is now." I opened the folder. Inside were documents, birth certificates, hospital records, letters. I pulled out the first birth certificate. Nathan Morrison, born June 12, 1987. Mother, Sarah Morrison. Not Linda. My mother's name was Linda. "Who's Sarah?" I asked. My grandfather took a deep breath. "Sarah was my first wife, your father's first mother. She died when your father was 5. Your grandfather on your mother's side, Linda's father, he was Sarah's brother. When Sarah died, I remarried. To your grandmother, Margaret, we had Kyle. Your father and Kyle were half-brothers, but we raised them as full brothers. Your father was 12 when Kyle was born." I stared at him. "I don't understand. What does this have to do with me?" He pulled out another document. My birth certificate. Nathan James Morrison, born June 12, 1987. Mother, Sarah Morrison. Not Linda. Sarah, the woman who'd been my father's mother, who died when my father was 5. "I don't understand," I said again. "Sarah died in 1965. I was born in 1987. That's impossible." My grandfather nodded. "The certificate is a copy. Modified. The real one lists your mother as Margaret. My wife. Your grandmother. Nathan, you're not your father's son. You're his half-brother. Margaret and I had you when she was 47. Surprise pregnancy. Menopause baby. It was complicated. Scandalous. We were too old. We already had an adult daughter. And here came this baby. You." The room tilted. I grabbed the edge of the table. "What?" My grandfather reached across, took my hand. "Your father, Robert, was 42 when you were born. He and Linda had been married for 15 years, struggling with infertility. They'd done IVF. Nothing worked. Then here came you, a baby in the family, and they asked if they could adopt you, raise you as their own. Margaret and I were overwhelmed, too old to start over. We said yes. We gave you to them, made them promise they'd love you, raise you right, never treat you differently than children they might have." I pulled my hand away. "They adopted me. Robert and Linda adopted me. They're not my parents." My grandfather nodded. "Legally, they are. They adopted you when you were 6 months old, changed your birth certificate, made it look like you were theirs from the beginning. But biologically, I'm your father. Margaret was your mother. Robert is your half-brother. Kyle is your nephew." Couldn't breathe. Couldn't process. 38 years of family structure collapsing. Why didn't anyone tell me? My grandfather's eyes filled with tears. "Because 2 years after they adopted you, Linda got pregnant. Miracle baby, Kyle. Suddenly they had the biological child they'd always wanted. And you became, less important, the adopted son, the placeholder. Margaret noticed it immediately. The way they treated you differently. The way Kyle got everything and you got leftovers. She wanted to tell you the truth. Wanted to take you back. But we'd signed papers. Given up legal rights. All we could do was watch and hope they'd live up to their promises. They didn't. I stood up. Had to move. Had to do something other than sit there absorbing this. So I've spent 8 years funding my nephew, paying for his house, his car, his life, while he treats me like garbage, while my half-brother and his wife watch and do nothing. Because I'm adopted. Because I'm not really their son. My grandfather stood too. You are their son. They raised you. But yes, once Kyle was born, you became the adopted son. The one they'd taken in. The obligation. Especially for Linda. She'd never bonded with you. Struggled with the adoption from the beginning. Only did it because she thought she'd never have biological children. Then Kyle came and you were just there. The child they were stuck with. And as you got older, as you became successful, they started seeing you as a resource. Someone who could take care of Kyle. Someone whose purpose was to fund the child they actually wanted. I sat back down, head spinning. Kyle doesn't know. My grandfather shook his head. Nobody knows except Robert, Linda, and me. Margaret died thinking you'd eventually figure it out. That you'd see how they treated you versus Kyle and demand the truth. But you were too busy trying to earn their love. Too busy trying to be the good son. So you never asked questions. Never demanded answers. Just kept giving and giving, hoping eventually they'd give you what Kyle got automatically. I looked at the documents spread across the table. Evidence of my entire life being a lie. You're my father, I said, testing the words. Yes, my grandfather said, tears running down his face now. And I've been a coward. Should have told you years ago. Should have fought harder for you. Should have stopped them from using you. I'm sorry, Nathan. I'm so sorry. We sat in that diner for 3 hours. My grandfather telling me everything. About my birth. About Margaret's struggle with late pregnancy. About Robert and Linda's desperation for a child. About the adoption that was supposed to give everyone what they wanted. About Kyle's birth 2 years later that changed everything. About watching me grow up treated like an obligation while Kyle was treated like a gift. About Margaret's heartbreak. About his own guilt. Your grandmother left you money, he said. When she died 5 years ago, $50,000. She specified in her will it was for you. Robert was executor. He was supposed to give it to you. Did he? I shook my head. I never got any money when Grandma died. My grandfather's face hardened. He took it. Your inheritance. Used it for Kyle, probably. Same as he's done your whole life. Taken what was yours and given it to Kyle. He pulled out another document. Margaret's will. Clear language. $50,000 to Nathan Morrison, my grandson. In trust until he turns 35. To be used for whatever he needs. Robert Morrison, executor, to distribute funds on Nathan's 35th birthday. I turned 35 3 years ago. Never received a penny. Never even knew the money existed. I want to sue them, I said. My grandfather nodded. I'll help. I have copies of everything. The original adoption papers. The will. Bank records showing they never distributed the inheritance. Everything you need. We spent another hour going through documents. Building a case. By the time we left the diner, I had a box full of evidence. Proof that I was adopted. Proof that my inheritance was stolen. Proof that the people I thought were my parents had been using me my entire life. I drove home, sat in my apartment, surrounded by documents that rewrote my history. Nathan Morrison, born to Margaret and William Morrison. Given to Robert and Linda Morrison at 6 months old. Raised as their son until Kyle was born. Then slowly, systematically relegated to second place. To obligation status. To the role of ATM funding his nephew's life. I was 38 years old. And I just found out I'd been living someone else's story. Monday morning, I called my lawyer. I need to discuss 2 things. First, stolen inheritance. $50,000 I was supposed to receive 3 years ago. Second, financial exploitation. 8 years of funding someone else's life under false pretenses. I have documentation for everything. My lawyer asked questions. Took notes. Said this was complicated but potentially actionable. Give me a week to review everything. I'll get back to you with options. Tuesday, Robert showed up at my office. My half-brother, though I still couldn't think of him that way. Still thought of him as dad even though he wasn't. Hadn't been for 38 years. He looked terrible, like he hadn't slept. "Nathan, please. We need to talk." I gestured to a chair. He sat. "Kyle is a mess. Lost the house. Lost his car. Lost everything. He's living with us. Can barely function. You have to stop this." I leaned back. "Stop what? I'm not doing anything. I just stopped doing everything." "There's a difference." Robert ran his hands through his hair. "You're being vindictive. Yes, he threw the watch. Yes, it was rude. But you don't destroy someone's life over that. You don't abandon family." Family. The word tasted wrong now. "Tell me about the adoption," I said. Robert froze, face going pale. "What?" I pulled out the documents my grandfather had given me, spread them on the desk. Birth certificates, adoption papers, Margaret's will. "Tell me about how you adopted me when I was 6 months old. How you promised to love me like your own. How you were supposed to give me $50,000 when I turned 35. Tell me about all of that." Robert stared at the documents, at the evidence of 38 years of lies. "How did you?" "William told you." Not a question, a realization. He told me everything. That he's my biological father. That Margaret was my mother. That you and Linda adopted me. That Kyle was born 2 years later and everything changed. That you took my inheritance and used it for Kyle. All of it. Robert slumped in his chair. "We were going to tell you. When the time was right. It never seemed like the right time." I laughed. Harsh. Bitter. "When was the right time?" "When I was paying Kyle's mortgage. When I was funding his business. When he was throwing my gifts on the ground and you were smiling. When exactly were you planning to tell me I'd been funding my nephew? That you weren't actually my father? That I'd spent 38 years trying to earn love from people who saw me as an obligation?" Robert looked up. "We did love you. We do love you. It's just complicated. Kyle is our biological son. And you were adopted. It's different." I stood up. "Get out." He didn't move. "Nathan, please. We need..." I raised my voice. "Get out of my office. Now, before I call security." He stood slowly, walked to the door, turned back. "I'm sorry. For all of it. For not loving you the way we should have. For letting Kyle treat you badly. For taking the inheritance. For everything. I'm sorry." I didn't respond. Just watched him leave. Closed the door behind him. Sat at my desk surrounded by evidence of betrayal. And I didn't feel sad. Didn't feel angry. Just felt free. Like I'd been carrying their expectations my entire life and finally set them down. The lawsuit took 11 months to work through. Robert and Linda fought it initially. Claimed the adoption gave them rights to make decisions about my welfare. Claimed the inheritance had been used for family expenses, which included me. Claimed I'd given Kyle money voluntarily, so calling it exploitation was unfair. My lawyer tore those arguments apart. The will was clear. The money was mine. Robert had taken it without telling me it existed. That's theft. The 8 years of funding Kyle. While technically voluntary, it had been done under false pretenses. Under the belief I was Kyle's brother. Under pressure from people I thought were my parents. And I'd been a minor when adopted. The promises made about equal treatment had been broken. That mattered. The case settled out of court. Robert and Linda agreed to pay back the $50,000 plus interest. $73,000 total. They also agreed to pay restitution for the financial exploitation. A complicated calculation based on what I'd given Kyle versus what a reasonable family member would have given. The number came out to $200,000. Total settlement, $273,000. They had to sell their house to pay it. The house they'd raised me in. The house where Kyle was currently living in his childhood bedroom. They downsized to an apartment. Kyle had to move out, find his own place, a studio he could barely afford. Got a job, retail, because that's all he was qualified for. First job he'd had in 3 years. I took the settlement money and split it. Half went to my grandfather, William, my actual father, for raising me the best you could from a distance. I told him. For telling me the truth when nobody else would. For keeping Margaret's documents safe. For being the parent they never were. He cried when I handed him the check. Said he didn't deserve it. I told him he deserved more. The other half I donated. Started a foundation for adopted kids who were being treated differently than biological children. For kids who were being used by their families. Who needed to know they deserved better. Named it the Margaret Morrison Foundation, after my mother, the woman who'd given birth to me at 47, who'd watched from a distance as Robert and Linda broke their promises, who'd left me money they stole, who'd wanted better for me than what I got. I'm 39 now, 1 year since Kyle threw my watch on the ground, 1 year since I pulled every penny of support, 1 year since my life exploded and rebuilt itself into something actually resembling honesty. I don't talk to Robert or Linda, haven't spoken to them since the settlement. They're alive, living their smaller life, probably telling people some version where I'm the villain, the ungrateful adopted son who sued his own family. I don't care. They're not my family. They're the people who took me in and then spent 38 years making me pay for the privilege. Kyle sent an email 6 months ago. Subject line, "I'm sorry. I almost didn't open it. Did anyway. Nathan, I know you probably don't want to hear from me. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. But I'm sorry. For throwing the watch. For treating you like an ATM. For taking everything and giving nothing. For being a spoiled, entitled jerk for 30 years. You were a good brother. The best brother. And I took advantage of that. I'm working now. Retail. It's humbling. I'm making minimum wage. Living in a studio. Barely making rent. But I'm doing it myself. For the first time in my life, I'm actually taking care of myself. And it's hard. Really hard. I had no idea how hard. How much you were doing for me. How much you sacrificed. I get it now. I'm sorry it took losing everything for me to figure it out. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't expect anything. I just wanted you to know that I'm sorry. And that I'm trying to be better. To be someone who deserves a brother like you. Even if you're not my brother. Even if you're my uncle. Even if I never see you again. I'm trying. I hope you're happy. I hope you've built a life that doesn't include people who use you. You deserve that. You always did. Kyle. I read it 3 times. Looking for manipulation. For an angle. For some request hidden in the apology. It wasn't there. Just genuine remorse. Genuine growth. It didn't change anything. Didn't make me want to reconnect. Didn't make me want to rebuild. But it was something. Acknowledgement. Growth. Maybe 31 would be the year Kyle finally grew up. I didn't respond to the email. Didn't need to. Kyle and I were done. We'd never really been brothers. Just 2 people raised in the same house with completely different experiences. He'd been the wanted child. I'd been the obligation. And no amount of apologies would change that history. But I didn't hate him. Didn't wish him ill. Just didn't need him in my life. Didn't need anyone who'd proven they'd only value me when I was useful. I have a life now. A real one. William and I have dinner every Tuesday. He tells me stories about Margaret. About their life together. About the decision to give me to Robert. About the regret that followed. She loved you so much, he tells me. Used to cry at night after you left. Would say, "That's my boy, our boy." And we gave him away. She never forgave herself. Never forgave me. I think that's part of why she left you the money. Why she wrote it so specifically in the will. She wanted to make sure you got something from her. Something Robert couldn't take. Except he did. He took that too. I don't let William drown in guilt. Don't let him carry what Robert did. You told me the truth, I say. When nobody else would. When I needed it most. That matters more than the money. More than anything. I'm dating someone. Emma. She's a social worker. Works with foster kids. Understands complicated family dynamics. Understands being adopted. Being unwanted. Being used. We met at a fundraiser for the foundation. She asked about Margaret. I told her everything. About the adoption. About Kyle. About spending 8 years funding someone else's life. about the watch on the ground, about pulling all the support and watching everything collapse. She didn't judge, didn't tell me I should have been more understanding. Just said, "Good for you, for finally putting yourself first, for recognizing you deserved better. That takes courage. We've been together 8 months. Slow, careful, building something that's not based on what I can provide but on who I actually am." She's met William, heard his stories, asked thoughtful questions about identity and belonging and what it means to be someone's child. "Blood doesn't make family," she said over dinner one night. "Choice does. William chose to tell you the truth, chose to give you the tools to free yourself. That's more of a father than Robert ever was." She's right. William is my father, not because of biology, but because he showed up when I needed him, gave me truth when everyone else gave lies, supported my decision to walk away. That's what fathers do, or should do, what Robert never did. I went to Margaret's grave last month. First time since she died. William took me. We brought flowers. Stood in front of the simple headstone. Margaret Morrison, beloved wife and mother, gone too soon. "Hi, Margaret," I said. Felt strange calling her that. Felt like I should call her mom, but I didn't have the right. She'd been my mother for 6 months, then gave me away, then watched from a distance as I was mistreated. William told me everything, about the adoption, about watching Robert and Linda break their promises, about the money you left me. "I'm sorry they took it. Sorry you died thinking I'd get it. That I'd know you tried to help." The wind picked up, moved through the trees. William squeezed my shoulder. "She knows," he said. "Wherever she is, she knows." I touched the headstone, cold granite. "I started a foundation in your name, for kids like me, kids being treated differently because they're adopted, kids being used by their families. I'm making sure they get what you tried to give me, protection, resources, someone who tells them they deserve better." I stood there for a while, talking to a woman I'd never known, who'd given birth to me at 47, who'd given me away thinking it was best, who'd regretted it for the rest of her life. "I forgive you," I said, "for giving me away, for not fighting harder, for dying before you could tell me the truth. I forgive you, and I'm okay, better than okay. I'm free." William was crying. "She'd be proud," he said. "So proud of the man you've become, of the courage it took to walk away, of the foundation, of everything. You're exactly who she hoped you'd be." We left the cemetery, went to lunch. William told more stories, about Margaret's sense of humor, her kindness, her regret about the adoption. Every birthday, he said, she'd bake a cake, put your name on it, sing happy birthday by herself in the kitchen, then throw the cake away. Did it for 38 years, until the day she died. Said it was the least she could do. Acknowledge your existence, celebrate you, even if she couldn't do it with you. I thought about that, about Margaret baking cakes I never saw, singing to someone who wasn't there, grieving the choice she'd made. "I wish I'd known her," I said. William nodded. She wished that too, every day, but she thought giving you to Robert was the right choice. Thought he'd love you, thought Linda would mother you, thought you'd have a better life with parents who weren't in their late 40s. She was wrong, but she didn't know that until it was too late, until the adoption was final and you were legally theirs. All she could do was watch and hope and bake birthday cakes for a grandson she couldn't claim. I reached across the table, took William's hand. "I'm glad you told me, glad I know where I came from, who I came from. It doesn't change the past, but it changes how I think about it. Makes sense of things that never made sense. Thank you for that." Kyle's working at Target now. Saw him there a few weeks ago. I was buying something, turned a corner. There he was, red polo, name tag, stocking shelves. He saw me, froze. We stared at each other. Two people who'd grown up in the same house, who shared a grandfather, who'd been raised as brothers but were actually uncle and nephew. "Hi, Nathan," he said, quiet, unsure. I nodded. "Kyle." Awkward silence. Then, "How are you?" he asked. I shrugged. "Good. You?" He gestured at his uniform. "Living the dream, retail." Humbling. I believed that. He looked different, thinner, tired, older in a way that had nothing to do with age. Like he'd finally met reality and reality was exhausting. "I got your email," I said. "I know you didn't respond. I didn't expect you to. Just wanted you to know I meant it. The apology. I'm sorry. For everything." I nodded. "I know." We stood there, not sure what else to say. Then his manager called. He had to go. "Take care, Nathan," he said. I watched him walk away. My nephew, the person I'd spent 8 years supporting, who'd thrown my gift on the ground, who'd lost everything because I'd finally said no. I didn't feel victorious, didn't feel vindicated, just felt neutral, like I'd closed a chapter and moved on to a story that didn't include him. That was enough. Robert and Linda sent a Christmas card last year, to my office, since they didn't have my home address anymore. Generic message. "Wishing you peace and joy," signed by both of them. No mention of the lawsuit, no mention of Kyle, no mention of 38 years of lies. Just peace and joy, like we were distant relatives who'd lost touch. I threw it away. Emma asked if I wanted to respond. I said no. "They're not my family," I told her. "They're people I used to know, people I'm better off without." Responding would just open doors I've closed. I'm done with doors that lead nowhere. She understood, didn't push, just held my hand and said, "You're building something better, something real. That's what matters." She's right. I am building something better. A life with William, with Emma, with people who choose me because they want to, not because they need something. That's family. Real family. Not the people who raised me while resenting me. Not the nephew I funded for years. Not the lies I was told about who I was. The people who show up, who tell the truth, who value me for existing, not for what I can provide. That's what I have now, and it's worth more than anything I gave away. Thank you for walking this journey with me. Before you go, I've left 2 more stories here on your screen. Both from men who discovered that family isn't always who you're born to. It's who stands by you when the truth comes out. Click on whichever one calls to you. And if you want to join our community of people who understand what it's like to be the outsider looking in, that notification bell is your invitation. Until tomorrow, remember, your story matters, even if they tried to erase it.